Hey guys, tonight we step through the polished brass doors of another world entirely. A floating palace where crystal chandeliers caught the light of 1,000 electric bulbs, and Persian carpets muffled the footsteps of millionaires. You're about to slip into the rarefied air of Titanic's first class, where champagne flowed like water and dinner required 5 different forks. This isn't the story of tragedy you think you know. This is the story of opulence so breathtaking, it defied the very ocean that would claim it. So before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe pour yourself something elegant, and let's step aboard the most luxurious ship ever built. You're walking up the grand staircase now, your hand trailing along carved oak banisters that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. The air smells of fresh flowers, expensive cigars, and the faint trace of French perfume. Above you, a crystal dome catches the afternoon sun streaming through stained glass, painting rainbows across marble walls. You pause at the top of the stairs, adjusting your silk evening dress or straightening your white tie. Tonight is formal, as every night is in first class. The dress code isn't a suggestion, it's a sacred ritual that separates you from the masses below. Ladies glide past in Worth gowns that cost more than a working man's annual salary, their jewels catching the electric light like captured stars. Gentlemen stride by in tailcoats pressed to perfection, their shoes polished to mirrors that reflect the grandeur around them. The first-class dining saloon stretches before you like a palace ballroom. Carved mahogany panels reach toward a coffered ceiling, painted in ivory and gold. Electric lights, still a marvel to many passengers, illuminate tables set with Spode china and Sheffield silver. Each place setting includes enough cutlery to equip a small army, arranged according to rules so precise that one wrong fork could mark you as an interloper. You're seated at a table draped in Irish linen, so fine it feels like silk beneath your fingers. The menu, written entirely in French, offers 11 courses that read like poetry to those who understand such things. Hors d'oeuvres vary. Consommé Olga, poached salmon with mousseline sauce, chicken lyonnaise, vegetable marrow farci. Each dish arrives as a work of art, prepared by chefs poached from the finest hotels in Europe. The conversation flows around you in cultured tones. Mrs. Widener discusses her recent acquisition of rare manuscripts. Colonel Gracie debates the merits of modern literature with the sophistication expected of a gentleman scholar. The Astors speak quietly of their European travels, their voices carrying the weight of wealth so vast it shapes nations. You realize you're dining among titans of industry, inheritors of fortunes built on steel and railroads, coal and copper. A waiter glides forward to refill your crystal glass with wine selected from cellars that would make French vintners weep with envy. The bottle bears a label few will ever see, aged in caves beneath chateaux whose names grace the world's most exclusive tables. You sip slowly, tasting not just fermented grapes, but liquid history, the product of centuries of careful cultivation and patient aging. The evening's entertainment awaits in the lounge, where a professional orchestra plays selections from the newest operettas. The music drifts through air thick with the smoke of Cuban cigars and the rustle of silk against velvet upholstery. You settle into a chair that seems to embrace you, its leather soft as butter and dark as midnight. Around you, passengers engage in the delicate art of conversation, each word chosen for its ability to display wit without offense, knowledge without arrogance. Mrs. Ryerson holds court near the marble fireplace, its flames dancing merrily despite the fact that you're surrounded by thousands of miles of cold Atlantic water. She speaks of her plans to redecorate her Newport cottage, a task that will require importing artisans from Italy and marble from quarries that supplied the Vatican. Her audience listens with the rapt attention reserved for those whose casual expenditures exceed most people's wildest dreams. The gentlemen have retreated to the smoking room, that masculine sanctuary where brandy flows and business empires are discussed like chess moves. Leather chairs the size of thrones accommodate men whose signatures on contracts can alter the fate of entire industries. They speak in numbers that boggle the mind, calculating profits from ventures spanning continents while the ocean rolls beneath their feet. You wander toward your stateroom, passing through corridors lined with oil paintings whose subjects gaze down with aristocratic disdain. The carpet beneath your feet is so thick it muffles every sound, creating an atmosphere of hushed reverence appropriate to a floating temple of wealth. Electric sconces cast pools of warm light that transform the narrow hallway into something resembling a gallery in a great house. Your suite awaits behind a door marked with brass numbers polished to mirror brightness. The key turns with a precise click of Swiss engineering, and you step into rooms that would be considered palatial even on dry land. The sitting room welcomes you with furniture that seems plucked from Versailles, all gilded wood and brocaded silk. Fresh flowers arranged in crystal vases release their fragrance into air that smells of luxury itself. The bedroom beyond exceeds anything you might have imagined possible aboard a ship. A four-poster bed dominates the space, its mahogany frame carved with the delicate precision of master craftsmen. The mattress, imported from the finest manufacturers in England, promises sleep more comfortable than most people enjoy in their own homes. Sheets of Egyptian cotton, woven to impossible smoothness, invite you to experience rest fit for royalty. Your private bathroom astounds with its marble surfaces and gold-plated fixtures. The bathtub, carved from a single block of Italian stone, could accommodate a small dinner party. Hot and cold running water, still a luxury in many homes, flows at the turn of ornate handles cast in patterns that echo the ship's elegant aesthetic. Towels thick enough to serve as blankets await on heated rails, their monograms embroidered in threads of real gold. The wardrobe stands ready to receive clothing that represents the finest work of London's Savile Row and Paris's most exclusive ateliers. Evening gowns hang like captured moonbeams, their beadwork catching light from crystal fixtures overhead. Morning suits press against afternoon dresses in a symphony of fabric and craftsmanship that speaks to wealth beyond ordinary comprehension. You step onto your private promenade, a luxury reserved for the most expensive suites aboard the ship. The Atlantic stretches endlessly in every direction, its surface painted silver by moonlight that seems to recognize and honor your privileged position. The air carries the salt tang of the sea, but filtered through the lens of luxury that transforms even nature into something refined and exclusive. Below you, the ship's lower decks remain hidden, their passengers invisible to your elevated world. You exist in a bubble of privilege so complete it might as well be another planet. The concerns of ordinary travelers, their cramped accommodations and simple meals, seem as distant as the stars wheeling overhead. This is how the other half lives, you realize, though in truth you represent perhaps the other 1% of 1%. The ship's orchestra continues to play somewhere below, their music drifting upward to provide a soundtrack for your contemplation. The melodies speak of sophistication and culture, of evenings spent in concert halls and opera houses where the world's elite gather to display their refinement. Here aboard Titanic, that world has been recreated and set afloat, a moving testimony to human achievement and the power of unlimited wealth. You retire to your sitting room where a servant has laid out tomorrow's newspapers, pressed and folded with military precision. The headlines speak of distant political concerns and business developments that will affect markets around the globe. But from your position of privilege, these earthly matters seem abstract, intellectual exercises rather than forces that shape lives and destinies. The electric lights dim at your touch, controlled by switches that represent the newest advances in maritime technology. You settle into a chair that conforms to your body like a second skin, upholstered in leather so supple it seems alive. Around you, the luxury continues its silent testament to wealth and privilege, every surface and texture designed to remind you of your elevated status. This is first class aboard Titanic, where money has purchased not just comfort, but transformation. You have become, for these few days at sea, a member of the most exclusive club in the world, surrounded by beauty and luxury that defies the very elements that challenge lesser mortals. The ocean that threatens others merely provides you with a scenic backdrop for indulgence. Tomorrow will bring new delights, new displays of wealth and privilege that push the boundaries of what seems possible aboard a ship. But tonight, you rest in splendor that kings might envy, cradled by luxury that makes the very idea of want seem foreign and impossible. The morning arrives, not with harsh sunlight piercing your eyes, but with the gentle touch of your personal steward drawing back curtains of the finest Belgian lace. He moves with the practiced silence of one trained in the great houses of Europe, his every gesture designed to preserve the illusion that luxury simply materializes without effort or toil. Your breakfast awaits on bone china, so delicate it seems to glow from within, painted with patterns that required months to perfect in the kilns of Staffordshire. You dress with the assistance of a valet whose knowledge of fashion rivals that of the finest tailors. Each garment has been pressed to perfection overnight, hanging now without a single wrinkle to mar its pristine surface. Your morning ensemble speaks of understated elegance, the kind of wealth that whispers rather than shouts, though every thread costs more than most passengers paid for their entire voyage. The silk stockings slide against your skin like liquid moonlight, imported from mills in Lyon, where master weavers guard their secrets like state treasures. The Café Parisien beckons, with its promise of continental sophistication, a recreation of sidewalk culture transported to the middle of the Atlantic. You settle at a table where the morning light filters through ivy-covered trellises, creating patterns that dance across marble surfaces polished to mirror brightness. The coffee arrives in porcelain cups so thin you can see shadows through their walls, filled with beans roasted to perfection in small batches by artisans who understand that excellence admits no compromise. Around you, fellow passengers engage in the morning ritual of displaying their refinement. Mrs. Cardessa examines a jeweled lorgnette with the critical eye of a museum curator, while her companion discusses the merits of various European spas with the authority of one who has sampled them all. Their conversation flows in multiple languages, switching from English to French to Italian with the fluid ease of those educated by private tutors in drawing rooms overlooking manicured gardens. The ship's daily newspaper, printed aboard in a facility that would be the envy of many land-based publications, carries news from the wireless room, stock prices from London and New York, social announcements from Boston and Philadelphia, weather reports that seem academic when viewed from behind walls of luxury thick enough to muffle the ocean's roar. You scan the financial pages with the detached interest of one whose wealth insulates them from the market's daily fluctuations. A gentle chime announces the opening of the gymnasium, though the very idea of exertion seems almost vulgar in such refined surroundings. Still, the modern equipment draws curious passengers who view physical fitness as another luxury to be sampled rather than a necessity to be endured. The rowing machine and stationary bicycle gleam with brass fittings that transform utilitarian exercise into objects of art. Each lever and wheel polished to jewelry brightness. The Turkish baths await those seeking more exotic forms of relaxation, their marble chambers heated to temperatures that melt away the very memory of effort or concern. Steam rises from pools fed by water, heated in boilers tended by men whose faces you will never see, their labor invisible to maintain the illusion of effortless luxury. You recline on heated stone while attendants trained in the finest European establishments minister to your comfort with oils and unguents that cost more per ounce than gold. Luncheon presents another opportunity to display the ship's magnificent excess. The a la carte restaurant offers cuisine that rivals the finest establishments in Paris or London, prepared by chefs whose reputations preceded them aboard this floating palace. Each dish arrives as a masterpiece of presentation, garnished with ingredients flown in from distant continents before departure, their flavors speaking of orchards and vineyards that exist in your world as names on wine labels and entries in account books. The afternoon promenade becomes a fashion parade where passengers display their carefully curated wardrobes to audiences educated in the subtle gradations of style and expense. Ladies glide past in afternoon ensembles that required months of fittings and alterations, their parasols twirled with practiced nonchalance that conceals years of deportment lessons. Gentlemen stroll in perfectly tailored suits that bear the discreet signatures of Savile Row masters. their walking sticks carved from exotic woods by craftsmen whose skills passed down through generations of guild apprenticeship. You pause at the ship's library, a temple to leather-bound knowledge where first editions rest in climate-controlled cases like religious relics. The volumes speak of civilizations and philosophies, of poetry and politics, their gilt-edged pages touched only by gloved hands trained in the proper reverence for literary treasures. The reading chairs embrace you with the comfort of furniture designed for contemplation, their leather worn smooth by generations of scholarly reflection. The afternoon tea service transforms the palm court into something resembling a conservatory in a great English estate. Palms imported from tropical shores create an atmosphere of eternal spring, their fronds rustling in air, perfumed with the scent of rare orchids that bloom without regard to season or climate. The tea itself arrives in services of sterling silver so elaborate they require their own servants. Each pot and creamer a masterwork of decorative arts that transforms the simple act of drinking into ceremony. Delicate sandwiches, cut into perfect triangles, disappear between conversations that span continents and decades. Their ingredients, speaking of estates and farms that exist primarily as entries in ledger books maintained by armies of accountants. The cucumber speaks of English greenhouses, the salmon of Scottish streams, the cream of Jersey herds that graze in pastures maintained at expense that would bankrupt ordinary farmers. Each bite carries the flavor of privilege distilled into its most refined essence. The smoking room fills with gentlemen whose afternoon cigars cost more than most passengers earn in a week. Their tobacco leaves aged in caves beneath Caribbean plantations where generations of masters have perfected the art of cultivation. The leather chairs creak softly under the weight of men whose decisions reshape industries. Their conversations drift in between merger negotiations and social gossip. With the easy confidence of those accustomed to power, brandy flows in crystal snifters that warm the amber liquid to release bouquets developed over decades of patient aging in oak barrels that themselves represent investments in time and craftsmanship. The children of first class inhabit their own rarefied world, attended by governesses whose education rivals that of university professors and whose discretion ensures that young minds develop within carefully controlled boundaries of privilege. Their toys arrive from the finest shops in London and Paris, handcrafted miniatures that replicate the adult world of luxury in forms suitable for small hands. Even their nurseries aboard ship exceed the accommodations available to most adult passengers, furnished with pieces that would grace the finest homes on shore. Evening approaches with the promise of entertainment that transforms the ship into a floating opera house, where culture and refinement reach heights that challenge the very concept of what is possible at sea. The orchestra tunes their instruments in preparation for performances that will echo the finest concert halls of Europe, their music flowing through spaces designed by architects who understood that luxury must engage every sense to achieve true perfection. You return to your suite to prepare for dinner, that nightly ritual where dress and deportment reach their most elaborate expression. Your evening attire awaits with the patience of inanimate objects elevated to art through the application of unlimited expense and flawless craftsmanship. Each fold and pleat arranged to create silhouettes that speak of breeding and wealth in languages understood by those educated in such subtle communications. The dressing ritual begins with the careful selection of undergarments that few will ever see, but whose quality speaks to the absolute commitment to perfection that defines your world. Silk chemises slide against skin like whispered promises, their hand-sewn seams invisible to the naked eye, yet testament to hours of labor by seamstresses whose fingers have been trained since childhood in the mysteries of perfect construction. Corsets arrive from Paris ateliers, where the fitting process required multiple visits. Their whalebone stays shaped to your exact measurements and covered in satin that feels like captured moonbeams. Your lady's maid appears with the reverent bearing of a priestess approaching an altar, her hands steady from years of dressing women whose appearances could launch social seasons or destroy reputations with a single misstep. She understands that your evening gown is more than clothing. It is armor woven from silk and dreams, its every bead and thread calculated to project power disguised as beauty. The dress slides over your frame like liquid starlight, its worth label hidden inside folds that speak of craftsmanship so exquisite it borders on the sacred. Jewels emerge from velvet-lined cases that traveled under armed guard from bank vaults in London and New York. Diamonds catch the electric light and fracture it into rainbows that dance across your throat. Each stone selected not merely for its size, but for its ability to sing in harmony with its companions. The necklace alone represents the purchase price of several homes, yet it rests against your collarbone with the casual weight of something that has always belonged there, its presence as natural as breathing. Your hair receives the attention of an artist whose reputation preceded her aboard this floating palace, her fingers weaving strands into architectures that defy gravity while appearing effortlessly elegant. Pins crafted from precious metals disappear into constructions that will survive an evening of dancing and conversation without surrendering a single lock to disorder. The final touches include powder applied with brushes so soft they seem made from captured clouds, their bristles distributing color with the precision of master painters working on miniature canvases. The corridors leading to dinner glow with the warm radiance of electric fixtures that banish every shadow while creating pools of golden light that transform mere passage into processional ceremony. Fellow passengers glide past like figures from a fairy tale, their evening wear creating a moving gallery of the finest textiles and craftsmanship that money can commission. Ladies drift by in clouds of silk and satin, their trains whispering against carpet so thick they muffle every footstep into reverent silence. Gentlemen stride past in tailcoats that required weeks of fittings to achieve perfection, their white ties knotted with mathematical precision by valets, whose understanding of formal dress rivals that of court officials. Their patent leather shoes gleam like black mirrors, reflecting the luxury that surrounds them while creating the illusion that they float rather than walk through these hallowed spaces. Even their pocket watches represent masterworks of Swiss engineering, their golden cases engraved with family crests that speak of lineages stretching back through centuries of accumulated power. The first-class dining saloon awaits your entrance like a cathedral prepared for evening mass. Its tables arranged with geometric precision that speaks to an understanding of social hierarchy. Refined through generations of practice, crystal stemware catches the light from chandeliers whose individual drops were selected and positioned by craftsmen who understood that perfection admits no compromise. Their surfaces refracting illumination into patterns that dance across linen so fine it seems woven from moonbeams. Your assigned table represents a careful calculation of social compatibility and mutual advantage. Each seat occupied by passengers whose wealth and breeding have been evaluated and approved by invisible committees whose judgments shape the very atmosphere of refined society. The Astors hold court with the easy confidence of those accustomed to deference, while Colonel Gracie displays the scholarly bearing that transforms vast learning into casual conversation. Mrs. Widener's presence adds the weight of cultural authority that comes from patronizing artists and collecting treasures that will outlive their creators. The evening's menu arrives written in script so elegant it resembles illuminated manuscript pages, its French phrases rolling off tongues educated in the finest schools where multiple languages were absorbed along with deportment and classical literature. Each course promises flavors that exist only in the imagination of chefs whose talents command salaries that exceed the annual incomes of entire villages, their creations emerging from kitchens equipped with technology that represents the pinnacle of culinary innovation. Conversation flows around the table like vintage wine, poured from bottles whose labels represent years of patient aging in cellars that exist as investments rather than mere storage spaces. Topics drift from European politics to American industry with the easy familiarity of those whose opinions shape both. Their words carrying weight that transforms casual observations into market-moving pronouncements. Stock prices rise and fall based on conversations that seem as light as the champagne bubbles dancing in crystal flutes, yet their implications ripple through financial centers on both sides of the Atlantic. The service proceeds with choreographed precision that would shame ballet companies, each course arriving at temperatures calculated to the degree and presentations that transform mere sustenance into visual poetry. Waiters glide between tables with the silent grace of shadows, their movements so practiced they seem to anticipate needs before they arise. Wine glasses never empty, bread plates never bare, ashtrays never marred by the evidence of their use. The orchestra begins its evening performance from an alcove designed to amplify their music, while keeping the musicians themselves appropriately invisible, their melodies flowing through air thick with the mingled fragrances of rare perfumes and exotic flowers that bloom without regard to season or climate. The music speaks of Vienna and Paris, of concert halls where audiences dress to display their cultural sophistication as much as to hear the performances, their appreciation measured in applause that carries the weight of informed judgment. Between courses, passengers rise to promenade through spaces designed to accommodate such displays of refinement, their movements creating a living tableau of privilege in motion. Ladies adjust their gloves with gestures learned in finishing schools, where deportment was elevated to high art, while gentlemen paused to light cigars whose tobacco leaves were aged in processes that spanned decades of patient cultivation. Even their casual conversations carry undertones of power that transform social pleasantries into negotiations whose outcomes affect industries and governments. The wine service continues throughout the evening with selections that represent the finest vintages from cellars that exist as legends rather than mere storage facilities. Their bottles bearing dates that coincide with historical events whose significance pales beside the perfection of the grape harvests they commemorate. Each sip carries flavors developed through processes that required generations of expertise, their complexity unfolding on palates educated through years of tasting experiences that most people will never approach. Children appear briefly for goodnight rituals that display their careful training in the forms of polite society, their clothing miniature versions of adult elegance, and their manners polished to perfection by governesses whose own education rivals that of university professors. They speak when spoken to with voices modulated to carry just the right notes of respect and intelligence, their presence serving as living proof of their family's commitment to perpetuating the traditions that maintain their elevated positions in society's carefully structured hierarchy. The evening's entertainment unfolds in spaces designed to rival the finest venues in London and New York. Their acoustics calculated to carry every nuance of performance to audiences whose appreciation has been refined through exposure to the world's greatest artists. Professional musicians imported specifically for this voyage demonstrate skills that command fees exceeding the annual salaries of skilled craftsmen. Their repertoires, spanning classical masters and contemporary compositions that speak to the sophisticated tastes of passengers whose patronage shapes the very direction of cultural development. Dancing follows in ballrooms whose floors gleam with polish, applied by hands that understand the sacred nature of surfaces where society's elite display their grace and breeding through movements learned from masters whose own teachers traced their lineage back to the courts of European monarchs. The music flows from orchestras whose members were selected not merely for their technical skills, but for their understanding of how rhythm and melody must combine to create atmospheres worthy of such refined company. Your partner for the evening may be a railroad magnate whose fortune was built upon steel rails that cross continents, or perhaps a banking heiress whose signature on documents moves millions between accounts scattered across international markets. The conversation that passes between you as you glide across polished floors carries the weight of decisions that reshape entire industries, yet it flows with the lightness of champagne bubbles rising through crystal stems. Your steps follow patterns learned in dancing masters' studios, where European nobility once perfected the art of movement as social communication. The gentlemen retreat periodically to their sanctuary of leather and mahogany, that masculine preserve where brandy flows like amber rivers and cigars burn with the slow patience of wealth that measures time not in minutes, but in decades. Their chairs embrace bodies accustomed to comfort, while their voices discuss ventures that span oceans and continents, each handshake potentially worth more than entire townships. each casual agreement capable of altering the economic landscape of nations. The smoke rises in lazy spirals that seem to carry their words toward ceilings painted with scenes of classical triumph. Ladies gather in drawing rooms where silk-upholstered furniture provides stages for displays of cultural refinement that transform casual conversation into performances of sophisticated breeding. Their jewels catch gaslight and electric illumination alike, creating constellations that shift and dance with every gesture of gloved hands that have never known labor more strenuous than needlework created purely for artistic expression. The topics flow from European court gossip to American social seasons with the easy familiarity of those whose opinions help determine which names appear on the most exclusive invitation lists. The ship's library becomes an evening retreat where leather-bound volumes rest in cases that maintain perfect temperature and humidity for the preservation of knowledge that exists as much for display as for reading. First editions of works that shaped literary history share shelves with manuscripts whose margins bear notations in hands that history remembers, their pages touched only by those educated to appreciate the weight of words that changed civilizations. Reading chairs positioned near windows offer views of starlit waters, while their occupants absorb wisdom distilled through centuries of human thought. Your return to private quarters reveals spaces that have been transformed during your absence by invisible hands trained in the sacred arts of personal service. Fresh flowers arranged in crystal vases release fragrances that speak of greenhouses maintained at expense that would support entire families. Their blooms, selected not merely for beauty, but for their ability to complement the evening's carefully orchestrated atmosphere. Linens have been turned down with precision that reveals military training adapted to civilian luxury, each fold calculated to provide maximum comfort while maintaining aesthetic perfection. The private bathroom awaits with fixtures that gleam like captured starlight, their surfaces reflecting the warm glow of electric sconces that banish every shadow while creating pools of golden radiance. Hot water flows at pressures maintained by engineering systems that represent the pinnacle of maritime innovation. Their temperatures regulated by mechanisms that ensure perfection without requiring conscious thought from those they serve. Towels warmed on heated rails embrace skin with the softness of clouds captured and woven into textile form. Your lady's maid appears with the reverent bearing of one entrusted with treasures whose value extends far beyond mere monetary calculation. Her hands steady from years of handling garments that represent the finest achievements of textile arts. She understands that the removal of evening wear requires the same careful attention as its initial application. Each hook and button a component in constructions that must be preserved for future occasions, when their beauty will again serve as armor in social battles fought with elegance rather than weapons. The night clothes that replace your evening ensemble speak to comfort elevated to artistic expression, their silk surfaces sliding against skin like liquid moonlight, while their construction reveals the same attention to detail that characterizes every aspect of your floating world. Even garments intended for sleep carry the signatures of master craftsmen, whose needles create seams invisible to naked eyes, yet testament to standards that accept nothing less than absolute perfection in every thread and stitch. Your private promenade beckons with promise of contemplation beneath stars that seem arranged specifically for your viewing pleasure, their light reflecting off waters that stretch toward horizons unlimited by the concerns of ordinary mortals. The Atlantic spreads in every direction like a carpet of liquid silver, its surface disturbed only by the ship's passage through waters that seem to part with respectful deference to the luxury they carry. The air carries salt tang filtered through the lens of privilege that transforms even nature into something refined and exclusive. The ship's progress through darkness creates its own rhythm, a gentle rocking that speaks to engineering achievements that have conquered the very elements, while providing platforms for luxury that defies comprehension. Each degree of motion has been calculated to provide just enough sensation to remind passengers of their maritime adventure, while ensuring that comfort never surrenders to the demands of mere transportation. This floating palace moves through waters that have claimed lesser vessels, while its passengers rest in security, purchased through expenditures that exceed the gross domestic products of entire nations. Sleep approaches with the promise of dreams worthy of surroundings that have redefined the very concept of luxury at sea. Your bed awaits with linens that speak of Egyptian cotton fields, tended by hands that understand the sacred nature of fibers destined for such elevated purposes. Their weave so fine, it seems to glow with inner light, while providing comfort that exceeds anything available in terrestrial accommodations. Pillows filled with down from Arctic birds cradle heads that have been educated in the finest institutions, while their dreams unfold in minds shaped by exposure to beauty and privilege that most humans never approach. The darkness beyond your windows holds mysteries that seem academic when viewed from behind walls thick enough to muffle the ocean's voice. Their protection purchased through investments in engineering that represent the pinnacle of human achievement, applied to the service of those whose wealth commands such dedication. The Atlantic continues its ancient dance with forces that have shaped continents, while you rest in chambers that float above such concerns like clouds drifting through skies unmarked by terrestrial limitations. Tomorrow will bring new opportunities to display the refinements that mark your elevated position in society's carefully maintained hierarchy. New chances to participate in conversations that shape the direction of human civilization while appearing to engage in nothing more substantial than social pleasantries. The morning will arrive with services that anticipate every need while remaining invisible to maintain the illusion that luxury simply materializes without effort or cost. Its provision, the natural order of a world where wealth has purchased exemption from the ordinary limitations that constrain lesser mortals. But tonight belongs to contemplation of achievements that have placed you among the most privileged passengers ever to cross any ocean, surrounded by luxury that represents the finest expression of human craftsmanship and ingenuity applied to the service of those whose positions in society command such dedication. The ship carries you through waters that have witnessed the rise and fall of empires, while you rest in comfort that exceeds anything those ancient rulers ever imagined possible. Your presence aboard this floating palace, a testament to the power of accumulated wealth to reshape reality itself, according to the desires of those who possess it in sufficient quantity. The gentle motion continues through hours, marked not by clocks, but by the rhythm of waves, against a hull designed to carry precious cargo across waters that seem to recognize and defer to the importance of their burden. Each mile of progress, a victory of human will over natural forces that have been conquered through the application of unlimited resources to problems that lesser mortals accept as insurmountable limitations. The ship's passage through midnight waters becomes a meditation on power itself. Your floating world, a testament to what unlimited resources can achieve when applied without restraint to the pursuit of perfect luxury. The very darkness outside your windows speaks to the audacity of those who dared imagine that comfort could be maintained while crossing the most treacherous waters on earth. Their vision made manifest in chambers that seem to mock the ocean's ancient authority through the simple act of existing in such splendor. Your suite stands as a monument to the transformation of raw wealth into lived experience. Every surface and texture carefully selected to remind you that money, when possessed in sufficient quantities, becomes a force capable of bending reality to accommodate even the most extravagant desires. The Persian carpets beneath your feet speak of loom that operated for years to create patterns worthy of your footsteps. Their threads dyed with pigments extracted from sources so rare their very names are whispered in the workshops of master weavers who understand that true luxury admits no compromise. The morning will bring new revelations about the extent to which privilege can reshape the fundamental nature of existence itself. Your breakfast arriving on porcelain so delicate it seems to have been breathed into existence rather than formed by human hands. Its surface is painted with designs that required months to perfect. In kilns, tended by artisans whose entire lives have been devoted to achieving standards that most people cannot even imagine. The coffee that fills your cup will have been selected bean by bean from plantations that exist primarily to serve tables like yours. Their harvests evaluated not merely for flavor, but for their ability to provide experiences worthy of palates educated through exposure to the finest offerings of every continent. Your fellow passengers move through these floating halls like figures from a world where the ordinary rules of existence have been suspended through the simple expedient of possessing enough money to purchase exemption from limitations that constrain ordinary mortals. Their conversations carry the weight of decisions that reshape industries while maintaining the lightness of social pleasantries. Each casual remark potentially worth more than entire communities earn in decades of labor. Their words flowing with the easy confidence of those who understand that their opinions become reality through the simple act of expression. And so the voyage continues through waters that bend to privilege, carrying you through nights where comfort has conquered the very ocean itself. You have walked through chambers where wealth transformed wood and steel into something approaching the divine, where every breath carried the scent of luxury so complete It redefined the possible. This was first class aboard Titanic, a world where money didn't just buy passage, but purchased transformation into something beyond the merely human. The sea may have claimed this floating palace, but the memory of such breathtaking excess lives on, a testament to what unlimited wealth could achieve when it dared to challenge the Atlantic itself.